Hi, hello, and welcome to Cinema Express. We have Swati Thiyagarajan, the producer of the award-winning documentary My Octopus Teacher. She's also an environment journalist. And
Thank you very much.
so, Swati, in a previous interaction of ours, you had mentioned that My Octopus Teacher is a very personal story of Craig. At what point did you think this personal story transformed into an international content?
When we started, it was here in Cape Town at the tip of Africa. We were making a film on it. And so, of course, it was personal because it was Craig's story and his experience and the reasons for why he was in this ecosystem. But when Netflix came on board and they took it on as a global original, we knew we had a good film. We knew we had a strong story. We knew we had really a global appeal to it. But even that didn't prepare us for just how huge it became on Netflix through sheer word of mouth, because we're a small group of people in Cape Town. We have no connections anywhere. It's not like we're plugged into this bigger sort of commercial world. So that was actually extraordinary, the kind of reactions within the first three. There was a message coming in with how much people had loved the film, and the messages were really deeply personal messages on how it had changed their lives. People were going out more in nature. People with depression felt like the film was helping them heal. I mean, extraordinary messages, and also from children. So yeah, that's when suddenly we realized that, my God, there's a real international appeal to this film. It seems to be cutting across all sorts of cultural barriers and language barriers and experience that people have, but everyone seemed to be loving it. So yeah, that's it. It's been amazing, and that's when we kind of felt like, wow, we had a really universal story.
So great. So, as a viewer, I was so curious to understand more about the process that went behind the making of the film. So, at what
Yeah.
point did Craig or your creative team decide this is going to be the story of our short film, this octopus, or uh, the entire ecosystem is going to be the plot line? So, like, and how did you get the crew down there and like? If I'm not wrong, a couple of other cinematographers should have also been involved with the process along with Craig to get the spectacle that we see on screen right now. So, how was it logistically orchestrated?
Essentially, it all started just with Craig. He was
Hmm.
going through the issues that he had. People go to therapy. For Craig, this is his space to go in to do what he does. So in the process of going in and getting cold adapted and diving and really focusing on what he was seeing in the ecosystem, he started seeing such spectacular, wonderful things that he can't help himself. He's a creative person. He's also a camera person. He's not just a
Yeah.
filmmaker. For animal behavior makes you really sort of immerse into your environment, if you will. So this was all very, very personal. And then he met the octopus into this process. And because she was so interesting, unlike other octopuses, where almost every day she was kind of like there and she wasn't fleeing or leaving and she was interacting, he started taking the camera down. And because of his experience of 30 years of filmmaking, of course, he knew exactly where to place the camera, how to, and fit himself within the frame. And it was all just purely out of wanting to record something. Nothing, even now, it wasn't about the film. So it was into the process of getting footage of the octopus and sort of seeing this wonderful interaction with her and feeling it, and then seeing what was happening in the ecosystem around him, that he invited his friend Roger Horrocks, who was the director of photography of the film, to come in. So it was actually just Craig and Roger underwater. And Roger is also like a BAFTA winning, he's one of the best underwater camera persons in the world, does a lot of work for Blue Planet and Planet Earth and all of this stuff. So, and Craig and he have worked together, filming crocodiles and things like that. They've done many films together. So they have a wonderful rhythm of working as well. So all of these things were very important, in a film like this, to keep it intimate. You can't have a massive crew underwater, and you can't have like a ton of equipment underwater to keep that intimacy. So mostly it was Craig placing the camera in places, sometimes two different cameras to get different angles. And then, of course, Roger went in on many, many dives to get that, that expanse of it and the other shots that you see. And then, of course, when we realized we had excellent material, and that it could potentially be a story. And of course, the thing that jumps out at you from all the material is that interaction with the octopus. So we decided that would be the main thread of the story. Then, of course, in the editing process, especially when Pippa came in and helped structure the story, she's also fantastic in the water. Craig was mentoring her in the water and how to be in the water. So she started then taking shots of Craig and the ecosystem and all of it to, how the editing process works, to bring in all of that. So that's how really it was structured. So the heart of the film is still very intimate. It's mostly Craig, it's mostly the octopus, it's mostly what he filmed and what he saw, and then Roger going into that space, and then Pippa coming in. So that was the visual arc of everything. Then on land and drone shots and stuff, of course, we had, my son did all of the drone work actually. Great. And then we had another fantastic camera person, Warren, who did all of the shots on land. So yeah, it was a very organic process, and incredible hive mind of a fantastic team. Our executive producer, Ellen Windemuth, is someone who was Craig's very, very close friend and had made films with Craig, and she'd known Craig for 30 years. So everybody was like very together, and we really worked well as a team. And Sarah Edelson from Netflix, who finally chose the film, who came on board as another executive producer, she contributed a lot. So yeah, I would say that it was a real big team effort, and everybody sort of their thoughts and ideas, all of us together sort of put it together. So that's how the film kind of happened. So it was quite an intimate process. It wasn't some massive team.
And you're an environmental writer and an environmental enthusiast yourself. So what about your contributions to the project?
Yeah, so being an environment and nature journalist and having spent so much time in nature myself, firstly, I completely understood why Craig had to be in the water for, because for me, when I'm unhappy or I feel tired, or for me, my happy place is nature. It's my default go-to for everything. I've spent 20 years of my life all over India and various wonderful wild places, and here in Southern Africa. So firstly, as a partner, now take me out as a professional, but as a partner, this is my husband. He was going through whatever he was going through, and this is what he needed to do. So you completely support that, firstly. Then, of course, even before we thought about it as a film, he'd come back every day after a dive and share with me, footage and photographs from everything that he was seeing. We talk about what he saw. We discuss, if the animal is doing this, perhaps this is the behavior, or, oh, wow, this looks like a new animal. We should send it to a marine biologist because maybe it's a new species. So we'd have all these conversations, and also we'd have conversations on how nature makes us feel, how important it is, because this is our passion for both of us. So it's from all of these various conversations and all of this stuff that was shared that when Craig finally thought, wow, we may have material for a film, and when we sat down and really talked about it, the both of us realized that we really did have something amazing on our hands. But then, when Pippa came on board, it was wonderful because you had someone a little bit removed from those intimate experiences who could also then contribute and say, hey guys, this could be the structure. This is how we could maybe do it. And then the rest of the team slowly came on board. So I was part of the whole process, from the ideation process to the creation to the structure, through the whole process. But also when it's a story that is so personal and your husband's in the film, you don't also want to be, how shall I put it, a director's role or a direct producer's role is it's difficult when it's your partner and it's such a intimate film that you're also too close to, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So it was better for me to take that step back, but be involved in the process through the whole making of the film, but have these really fantastic, wonderful people run the boat, if you will, and really but yeah, I think all of us were, every single person on this team, was very much part, including my son, so everybody sort of was part of this team, and we're a very close-knit group of people who are also really good friends. So, it helped a lot.
So was the same reason, was it same reason why Craig brought in a different director? Because from his body of work, he has directed most of his projects, and apart from the ones he has cinematographed, was the story so close to him that he needed an extra hand on the deck?
So usually all of Craig's films he's made with his brother Damon. So that's why they call the Foster brothers. So every single film Craig's ever made, he's made with Damon. And then all of the crocodile films that he made, there was a trilogy on crocodiles he made for National Geographic and Animal Planet and all of this. That was also made with Damon and Roger. Roger came on board as the character in those films, and Roger did a lot of the cinematography in those films. That's how Roger came on board. When Craig was doing this stuff in the ocean at the time, Damon's son was born. So Damon became involved, like young baby, all of that. So he stepped back a little bit himself. So this became sort of like Craig's very personal journey and passion. So when he realized he had all this material and had to put it together, he needed someone slightly removed, not fully removed, just enough that they weren't part of that initial 3-4 years process when he was in the water doing all of this, But then Pippa, who came on board as the director, also spent so much time in the water. It was a very immersive, authentic experience. Pippa also goes in without the wetsuit. All the shots she's taken of Craig, she's done in the cold water without a wetsuit. Pippa, helped make the structure. She's the editor of the film, along with Dan Schwam and Jinx Godfrey, who was the consultant editor, but Pippa edited. So then James Reed was brought on board down the line, because we suddenly realized that Craig had to be in the film, because this voiceover narrative thing wasn't working, like the voice of God, because it was too intimate a film for that. But Ellen, Pippa, and I are too close to Craig to do that kind of an interview with him. So then James came on board as co-director, because he's brilliant and has this capacity of doing these fantastic interviews. So he flew down from England, didn't know Craig at all, spent 4 days getting that wonderful interview from him. So, all of these reasons. And because Craig then, when he realized he was really going to be in the film, had to totally take a step back from the rest of the processes, from being director or anything like that. That's why it's Pippa and James are the directors, and Craig was producer. So of course he was part of the whole process, but kind of like allowed other people a little bit sort of to tell him what to do and how. Because you just can't. It's too much. Yeah,
I understand. So does it ever intimidate you that Craig is putting himself out there with the possibility of a danger surrounding him almost whenever he does something as wild and creative as this?
He's a wildlife filmmaker, been a wildlife filmmaker all his life. So, he's dived with big sharks. And then when he did the crocodile films, I think that frankly was the most dangerous thing you could do, to open water dive with big crocodiles. They were the first people to do that with Nile crocodiles in the Okavango Delta. So that was actually more dangerous in a sense, because, crocodiles are tricky animals. Of course, here, when you're in the ocean every day, you have to respect the power of the ocean. You have to respect what the ocean is capable of. But the thing is, to be very honest, anything that will hurt you in the ocean is 99% of the time it's direct human error. Either you've misjudged conditions, or you've gotten into the path of an animal that you shouldn't have been in the path of, etc., etc. But he has so much experience, you learn to trust that. Initially, I couldn't be in the water because I nearly drowned as a child, and I was terrified of the ocean and water. But in the process of this film being made, in the years that Craig spent in the water, I was so inspired by all the footage I was seeing that I started to dive and swim myself. So now I'm in the water every day as well. So it's so mesmerizing underwater. Imagine like any tropical jungle on land. Imagine like in India, we have these beautiful forests, right? With tigers and all our deer and like all of the wild dogs and all of birds. Now imagine a forest like that underwater. That is what the sea forest, the great African sea forest, is like. So it's hypnotic, it's mesmerizing, it just draws you in. So that if you pay attention and you respect what you're seeing and you respect what you're going to experience, then you can minimize the danger. It's not like these animals. Actually, the animals are not that dangerous at all, not even the big sharks. It's invariably human error.
When you're making a feature film, ideally it has a format, like a rise of hero. He should have a conflict. There should be a bit of an emotion. There should be sacrifice, and finally a payoff. So everything comes as a single entity. But when you're making a documentary, it's so fortunate that My Octopus Story also has all these elements in the right proportion. So, was it very fortunate that it all happened, or did you see this all coming together even when Craig was exploring the ocean?
Yeah, so that archetypal hero's journey is what you're describing, is
Yeah.
what like at the heart of most stories are, right? Because for a viewer, they're wondering, can he or she do this? Will he or she succeed? Will he or she, and frankly, any documentary you watch, that is ultimately would be the heart of the story. So you take last year's winner, like Free Solo, for example. It's that gentleman climbing El Capitan without any equipment, conquering that mountain. For whatever reasons, he did it. That's a hero's journey. You take the film Cove that won the year before that, which was about the dolphin slaughter in Japan. It was investigative. Someone went in secretly, filmed the slaughter of these dolphins, brought that information out, made us all care about it as a conservation issue. That's a hero's journey. Even our fellow nominees, what unbelievably superb films. That was half the reason we were so stunned when we won, because our fellow nominees are absolutely best of the best, superb films. All of them, the heart of it, is about people struggling. Either it was an investigative report like in The Collective, where journalists very bravely went in to expose a few things and did a fantastic job, or Time, where this woman, her husband was incarcerated and her struggle to get him free and be a single mother, and how time flows up in that time. Or The Mole Agent, where this wonderful elderly gentleman goes into old age homes in Chile just to see what things are like, the conditions. What was that journey? And Crip Camp, fantastic, another film on disability, and these young people who are in a disability camp, but that formed the foundation for how some of them became some of the most active vocal activists for disability rights, differently abled people's rights. And extraordinary journey. So they were all about journeys. So there is no film, whether it's documentary or whether you create it as fiction, that is not. Any human journey is an extraordinary journey, even if it's just an existential journey, where it may not have a typical beginning, middle, and end. It's still a journey, but it's the hook of the story that makes all the difference. So were we fortunate that we could have made a wonderful natural history film just on the great African sea forest and the octopus and all the animals. Say if Craig had not had a 1-year-long relationship with one octopus, we could have still made a wonderful film on many octopuses and many animals and the great African sea forest, and it would have been a great nature film. So of course we were fortunate that, this particular octopus allowed him into her life, and there was all this wonderful interactions that happened. So of course, hugely fortunate. But otherwise, it's not like one goes, says like, you can't structure a documentary, right? So from that perspective, of course, we were very fortunate. But then the structuring happens on how best do you tell the story. And every story is a human story at the end of the day, a journey, a human journey. Yeah.
Right after Octopus Teacher premiered on Netflix, I've seen the makers or the team receiving love all over. Like for every single month, there has been an announcement or an award reaching your team. So now that you've made an Oscar award-winning documentary, so if someone someone comes over to you and asks how to make an Oscar award-winning documentary, what would be your answer?
I have actually no answers. All I can say is find a story that is authentic. Find a story that is true to you, to who you are. Find a story that is your voice. Find a cause that you're passionate about. Find a reason for waking up every morning that makes you so excited that you want to share with the world. I would really say just find something that resonates, that is authentic, that is human. Like what to say, right? There's no formula. In our case, it so happened because of Craig's utter dedication to being in this environment every single day that he went in and spent so many hours, something came out of that. So, you can't just wake up one morning and decide I'm going to make an Oscar-winning documentary. What are your life experiences? What drives you? What inspires you? What does the world around you mean to you? What are the issues that get you energetic and excited and really, really going? Tell that authentic story in the best way possible. Forget about the outcome. You cannot focus on the outcome. We had no idea. Honest to God, we had absolutely zero idea. The fact that it was on Netflix was huge for us. And then because it had a platform like Netflix, and then sheer word of mouth. If you see most articles, they'll tell you this documentary became a runaway hit because it was word of mouth. There wasn't some big marketing team behind it from our side or anything. Of course, once Netflix realized that they had this very popular documentary on their hands and that people were really, really reacting to it well, then their publicity team and their marketing team pushed it into various outlets, and then it went to awards. And then, of course, we started winning all of these awards. So that, of course, is different. But the process of actually getting there, we had no idea. We just knew that we had to tell the story, that this is an important story. And for a lot of people, they may be like, oh, it's only a nature film. But then maybe you've missed the point, because frankly, yes, many, many issues around the world are supremely important. I'm not dismissing that disability rights are important. I'm not dismissing that investigative journalism to corruption, supremely important. Elderly healthcare and what happens there, supremely important. So many things are so very important. Nature's also important. Look at the world we live in right now. Look at what we're facing every single day. This pandemic, my God, so heartbreaking for what's going on in India and in some other parts of the world. So, nature is an equally important issue. And if this personal story can show you about how connection to nature can change your life, heal you, how important it is for us as humans to have this empathy, to feel we belong, because this is our home, and to focus on that. And as the Sea Change Project, that's what we want. We want people to be inspired and filled with awe for this wonderful planet that we live in, and to make that heart connection to nature, because ultimately, this is our biosphere, and every breath of air we take, every bit of water we drink, every bit of food we eat, is linked to this place. And we are the human animal. We are nature. So this is what makes us passionate, makes Craig passionate, makes me passionate, makes Pippa wake up every morning, So that's why we told the story, not because we knew in advance it would do anything, but this is what drives our engine, for everyone on this team. So yeah, that's really the only thing I can say is
that's so inspirational, truly. Yeah. So I would like to wind up this conversation with one last question. So do you think a film or a documentary or something as a visual medium change a person's life? Because it took an entire ocean and a year's time for Craig's transformation, Craig to get back on his track, or get back to the space where he wanted. Do you think a 3-hour long film or a several hour long web series or any form of visual medium can impact a person's life?
Absolutely. I think the power of storytelling is, everything around us happens as a story. We humans are hardwired to respond to a story. And if those stories come with visuals, 100 times even better. I mean, look at the world around us. What makes us think the capitalist system is the best way to live? Because we've been sold the story that being successful and making money and consuming and having a certain lifestyle is, my God, that's the way to live. That's the story that you've been told. There are visuals all around you that show you that all the time. Famous people, luxury goods, lifestyle pictures. That's a story. Subconsciously, you are being pressurized to make choices in your life by that story. Another story will tell you democracy is the only way for any civilized nation to function. That's a story. For a communist nation, they'll tell you, socialism or communism is the best way. Everything is a story. So to think that only when we tell a story in that conventional way, it's a movie or something, we're living in a story the whole time. So what story do you want to tell? What visuals do you want to put out there? So can it make, of course, 2-minute advertisements get people going and buying things, if you really think about it. So why shouldn't an hour-long film or a 3-hour-long series or a month-long series, why shouldn't it change the world? And it does change the world. It does it all the time. So yes, it took Craig a long time to go through what he was going through and, heal and recover and all of that. But if the film, when someone is watching it, if they are feeling similar to Craig, and if that triggers something in them to do something about it, or reach out to nature, or even go to conventional therapy, whatever it might be, you feel hope. Oh, if he came through it, then I can too. Or you look at that and go, oh my God, I also want to be out in nature. Or you look at it and you go, I'm never going to eat an octopus again. Or, I'm going to be conscious about my seafood choices. Or you look at it and go, we must pay more attention to nature. We must protect nature. Then you've made all those differences. And it happened because of the movie, So just remember, we all live in a story the whole time. Everything we tell each other at the end of the day is a story. So it's, what is the story you want to tell? Why do you want to tell it? And what kind of change can you make from it? It has immense power.
Thanks a lot for your time and valuable words, Swati. And we are equally delighted that your roots are from India and you're a part of us. So,
thank you.
And convey our congratulations to Craig. I would love to have him on conversation, but I understand he's on
he's away on assignment. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you very much.
So happy for your team. I wish we'll meet again for another spectacular documentary or another work of yours.
We'll see.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.